Good morning. I pray that this finds you well. This morning, I would like to share with you one of my favorite parables, which you can find in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, beginning to read at verse 14, the parable of the talents. And so I would like to partly read, partly tell you this wonderful parable. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. We are told that the second slave does just the same, doubles the amount that his master had entrusted to him. But the third one is a different matter. He simply goes and digs a hole and hides the talents that had been entrusted to him. And then the master returns from his travels and he summons his slaves. And there is the first one who says to his master, "You gave me 5 talents. Look, I have made another 5. And the master is well pleased and says to this servant, "Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." And the second slave likewise came and said, "Here are the 2 talents you've entrusted to me. I doubled them. I made you 2 more." And the master responds in exactly the same way. But then comes a third and final slave who turns to his master and says, "Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground." The master, of course, is not well pleased. And at first sight, it seems that he treats this third slave rather harshly. But I would just like to revisit this parable and look at it a bit more closely. First and foremost, just imagine there is this master who entrusts his property to his slaves. There is a debate going on about whether the Greek actually could be read as he entrusted all his property to his slaves. Anyway, he trusts them and he gives them a lot of money. One talent is 6,000 denarii. And a denarii, as we know, was at that time what you could earn in a day if you were an ordinary laborer. If we were trying to translate a talent into modern terms of money, we would probably have to say that the 5 talents equal over £1 million, the 2 talents 500,000, and the 1 talent is still £250,000. So we are not talking little sums here. This master really trusted his slaves. So he gave them all he had to look after it for him. And the first and the second slave, they both did their best. They were not equal. One had 5, one had 2. But they both did their utmost to double it. The Bible tells us that this master had entrusted his slaves according to their abilities. He had not asked more of them than he could have done. And the reaction to the first and the second slave is exactly the same. He draws no distinction in their achievements. So where has this final slave gone wrong? After all, he gave the master back exactly what he had entrusted to him. But the crucial point is that he had the wrong idea of the master. He calls his master a harsh man. Is it a harsh man who entrusts everything to his slaves? We are within the time of Lent, and this reading in Matthew's Gospel, it comes right at the end when he talks about the judgment of the world. And we need to ask ourselves, why did Matthew place it just within that group of chapters? A parable, if we recall, is a story that tells us something about God, about the kingdom of God. So we need to think that in this parable, the master is actually our God, the God we believe in, who entrusts everything to us. Is the God we believe in a harsh God? The God I believe in is a loving God, who entrusted everything to us, who even gave us his Son. The third slave went wrong, where he just regarded his master as a harsh man, as someone who reaps where he did not sow, who could not recognize the love and the trust that his master put into him. And so he simply hid what had been given to him and didn't do anything with it. God asks not more of us than we can give. Each one of us is asked, according to our ability, to do what we can to grow God's kingdom. Simply burying our head in the sand is not what God is asking of us. We are indeed in Holy Week, and I entrust this parable to you to ponder and to pray about. What is it that God has entrusted to you? And what can you do to multiply what has been given, to grow God's kingdom? Stay safe and well, and may God bless you and your homes and all who live in it.